Welcome to my channel, detailing events throughout the decades. 1963. Kennedy assassinated. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was a passenger in a motorcade, traveling through the center of Dallas, Texas. At 12:30 p.m., the motorcade was in Dealey Plaza, when several gunshots were heard. President Kennedy had been hit in the back and throat, and had taken a fatal shot to the head. The governor of Texas had been in the same vehicle as Kennedy. He too was shot and sustained 3 wounds. Bystander James Togg received a cut to his cheek from the impact of a bullet, which hit the curb near to his feet. At the time, the limousine, which was open-topped, had been heading west on Elm Street. It had just passed the Texas School Book Depository. When this building was examined after the shooting, 3 empty bullet shells were discovered. They were just inside the window, on the 6th floor. These shells had been fired from a rifle. John F. Kennedy was the 35th President of the United States. Kennedy was riding with his wife at the time of the shooting, along with John Connally, the Texas governor, and John Connally's wife Nellie. It is believed he was shot by former U.S. Marine, Lee Harvey Oswald. The motorcade quickly rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where President Kennedy was pronounced dead. John Connally underwent emergency surgery, but would survive his injuries. 70 minutes after the shooting, Dallas police arrested Oswald. He was charged under Texas state law with President Kennedy's murder. He was also charged for the shooting of policeman, J.D. Tippit, who had been fatally shot at the time of the assassination. On Sunday, November 24, at 11:21 a.m., during a live television broadcast, Oswald was fatally shot by Jack Ruby, while being transferred to prison. Oswald was taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he died not long after. Jack Ruby was convicted of the murder of Oswald, though this was later overturned on appeal. While awaiting a new trial, Jack Ruby died in prison. Investigations into the event took 10 months, and concluded that Oswald had been the lone gunman, and that Jack Ruby had also acted along in the killing of Oswald. Kennedy was the 8th U.S. president to die while in office. President Kennedy had decided to travel to Texas, to help smooth over disagreements in the Democratic Party. This trip was announced to the public in September 1963. The motorcade route was finalized on November 18, and announced to the public a few days prior to November 22. President Kennedy was planned to depart for a fundraising dinner at Austin, later in the day. 3 vehicles were used for Secret Service and police protection in the motorcade. President Kennedy's vehicle had entered Dealey Plaza at 12:30 p.m. Nellie Connally is reported to have turned around to Kennedy and said, "Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you." In which came the reply from Kennedy, "No, you certainly can't." These would be the final words spoken by President John F. Kennedy. Shots were fired as the motorcade passed the Texas School Book Depository. Around 80% of witnesses recalled hearing 3 shots. Nellie Connally testified that after hearing the loud noise, which she claimed came from somewhere behind her, she turned to Kennedy and saw him raise his arms, with his hands in front of his face and throat. She heard another loud noise, and heard her husband yelling. She turned around towards her husband, as another shot was heard. After the president was shot, Jackie Kennedy began climbing onto the back of the limousine. Later she claimed to have no recollection of doing this. Secret Service agent, Clint Hill, jumped on the back of the vehicle, while Jackie returned to her seat. Agent Hill clung onto the back of the limousine, as it quickly made its way out of the Dealey Plaza, and onto Parkland Memorial Hospital. Both Governor Connally and his wife heard Jackie Kennedy repeat several times, "They have killed my husband, I have his brains in my hands." Jackie held John's head on the way to the hospital. The president's limousine passed by the grassy knoll to the north of Elm Street, at the time of the fatal headshot. Police and spectators ran up onto the grassy hill at the time. Witnesses testified that immediately after the shots were heard, they saw a puff of smoke arising from the trees by the stockade fence on the grassy knoll. However, they claimed that they did not see anyone running away from this area. The public was told of Kennedy's death at 1:33 p.m., by White House Acting Press Secretary, Malcolm Kilduff. Just after 2 p.m., Kennedy's body was taken from the hospital, and loaded onto Air Force One. At 2:38 p.m., Lyndon Johnson, with Jackie Kennedy by his side, took the oath of office, while aboard Air Force One. Kennedy's body was examined at Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland. This was based on the fact that Kennedy had been a naval officer in World War II. The body of President Kennedy was flown back to Washington, D.C. and placed in the East Room at the White House for 24 hours. On the Sunday after the assassination, President Kennedy's coffin was carried on a horse-drawn caisson to the United States Capitol. There he would lie in state. Thousands of people came to view the guarded casket and pay their respects. A service was held on Monday, November 25 at St. Matthew's Cathedral. The president was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. Throughout Oswald's interrogation, he repeatedly denied any involvement in the assassination. Many conspiracy theories were put forward after the assassination and in the following years. A majority of Americans believe there was a conspiracy to kill Kennedy, and Oswald was framed. Only about 30% believe Oswald was the only gunman involved. No doubt, these conspiracies will continue in the future, but whatever you choose to believe, we must not forget that a wife lost her husband, a mother lost her son, and children lost their father on that fateful day. Thank you for watching, and learning about events throughout history.